Taco, a lot of quarterly figures.
Yes.
But what were the figures that, I will not say surprised you, but you think were the most remarkable?
I think Apple
And Tesla.
and
no?
Tesla.
Yeah, I think those two were the two main companies that I would not say dominate the market, but they are quite quite heavyweights in the S&P 500, so they do have some impact. And we saw that especially yesterday, I think, with the S&P 500 when Tesla dropped almost 12%. But first, a little bit of macro news, no?
Yes, we had the Fed this week. Of course, also the tensions in Ukraine and Russia.
Absolutely.
Oil price highest level since 2014.
Oil, yeah.
Yeah. Also
Yeah,
the VIX accelerating, hitting the 32 highest point since 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tensions, Fed. It was quite an interesting week, I think.
Yeah, I think Powell didn't really mention a lot of news. I mean, I
No.
watched the whole speech. Did you?
No,
No, I did. So
I knew you were doing it.
and I was actually on WhatsApp with a couple of clients talking about it, and it was quite funny. But the speech itself was quite. They always talk about hawkish and dovish. It was quite dovish. It was not really. I mean, it was more or less what we expected. But then the questions, when you really start looking into these sorts of events, the questions actually make the market move.
Mhm.
So we had one journalist from the Wall Street Journal that had some specific questions. Okay, do you pretend or do you predict that you will raise with more than instead of steps of 0.25, are you going to do 0.50? And you saw that Powell was in some points actually admitting that they are planning to do that. Of course, the job market in the US has never been that strong, but the inflation is also affecting a lot of people that are not having these sort of high incomes to be able to buy specific goods due to this high inflation. And he was also talking about the supply chain shortage. So it's not like we're really there, but they don't really have any alternative. They have to increase the interest. And I think one of the most important things also what the market was looking for, whether they and how are they going to reduce the balance sheet.
Mhm.
And the balance sheet, of course, is now full with a lot of equity, which also had an impact on the stock market. And he was quite clear about the fact that by the end of the year they are going to start reducing the balance sheet. So that caused a little bit of movement in the markets.
Yeah, and it was a confirmation, like in March they start to.
In March.
yeah,
Yeah.
so not
You had
big-
something in Germany as well, no? Germany.
Yeah, I actually saw today. I had it on the other side. Today there was actually a news flash that the German GDP in the last quarter of 2021 actually shrank. So actually the economic growth for the whole year is still positive, 2.7. But actually the last quarter there was
Some growth.
shrink. Yeah, exactly, and that's quite remarkable. It was expected actually, but if you compare Germany, for example, with France, for example, over 2021, it's actually half of the growth of France. So Germany, normally the leader, of course, in Europe, but the growth on an annual basis was 2.7, and France is like 7.8,
Wow.
and also lower than the average. So we spoke a lot of times, of course, also about the averages between countries and in between regions. So Germany really, and why is that? Well, I won't to explain too much, but of course the manufacturing sector had a lot of problems in the supply chain. Also practical things like the vessel delays. You remember Evergreen in March. Those things is for one country less important than for another. So Germany also the vaccination problems in Germany and the lockdowns. So a mix of things that makes actually that a big economy suffers more than other countries. So
and the way you handle the pandemic as well. How it has a direct impact on your economy. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's now the figures of 2021. Of course, a little bit delayed, and the expectations also for this year is still not so good. And actually, I also had a look as an investor, of course, at the DAX itself. Last year, it's like still up, of course. Markets were positive, stock markets, but 13% compared to France 27. So you see a lot of difference. And as an investor, maybe, of course, if you think that all the nice and big companies of Germany will solve the problems, and things will get better. I mean, the pandemic, of course, will have one day a solution, I hope.
Could also be an opportunity, yeah?
That's what I mean. So, I mean, if you know these are the figures now, and you think that in 2023 maybe it's over, I mean, they are a little bit performing worse than the other countries. So that's interesting. But today it was the news flash that it's actually shrank in Q4 2021.
Interesting stuff. Who's going to start? You want to talk about Apple or Tesla?
Well, let me highlight some things about Apple.
You go ahead.
Okay,
and I'll finish up with Tesla.
Yeah, they reported yesterday a record revenue in the quarter, 124 billion revenues. Wow. And the market, of course, I reacted positive. So 5% the share was trading in the after hours. So let's see what happens today.
Yeah.
Also, the earnings per share. $2.10 reported and expected was 1.89, so also a lot of better than that. And I highlighted a few things like where are they performing well. Of course, the regions and the product level. No? So the regions, I think it was quite remarkable that there was over the whole year 21% more revenues from China.
Wow, that's interesting.
And especially in the last quarter compared to the previous, it was 77% more revenues from China. So making now that part of the total revenues, 20% of their total revenues. And that's, for example, the iPhone in China. Apple is the biggest smartphone vendor in China. So they really took a big market share there. On product level, 2021 as a total, there was a growth of 24% in the additional services. So 24% of the revenues came extra from services related to the iPhone, etc. But quarter compared to the previous quarter, 94.3% growth in revenues of the iPhone. So that combined with China, what I just said, and the iPhone. So that's actually, I think, the biggest eye catcher in their results.
Yeah, I think so.
They do have problems, of course, with the chip shortage, but the news was actually that it's not that bad for them. Of course,
they've done a good job because they have really good agreements with Taiwan Semiconductors. I heard.
Yeah, I think they on every level they have like their market position is like leading. No, they can they are the products, the problems in the product supply. I mean, if you are that big and you can, for example, the inflation, you can raise your prices. So it's actually just having more clients, and that's, I think, the solution for them. So they have apparently good agreements on that level. So their lack of income due to the shortage was not that bad, and they also expect it not to be that bad in the future. But it is still a problem, of course, in the production. So very good news for Apple.
Good news for Apple, yeah. People are still buying a lot of phones then.
Yeah, but let's see what happens, of course, today. But the price actually also fell down. I mean, from 180 to 160, and now probably around 167 based on the after-hour sales.
Agree with you,
So I'm interested what will happen later today.
Yeah, Tesla also selling a lot of their goods, a lot of new cars, record amount of cars sold, almost 936,000 cars, which is absolute record for compared to any other car company. And also, think about it, you talked about the chip shortage. I mean, these cars are full with electronics and they didn't have this problem. It's 87% more cars than in 2020 that they've delivered in 2021. Record profit as well, because the first year they were actually profitable was in 2020. They made about 720 million and now they made 5.5 billion. The turnover was 53.8 billion for Tesla, and compare that to 2020, then it was 31.5. So growth on any level. However, there was one thing that the market didn't like so much, and that was the fact that they said they're not going to come out with any new models, and they were expecting some sort of news on that level. And another point was also, of course, that the valuation of the company itself is still really, really high. And the fact that the Fed announced that they're going to increase these interest rates, you see that Tesla is actually affected by that a little bit more than a company such as Apple. And if I'm looking at the screen now, the earnings per share at the moment are approximately 309, and they are expected to become approximately $5 or $6 dollars per share. If we look at the income statement, the revenue expected for this year, they're actually already almost beating that. There's 82.2 billion, so they still estimate some growth, but a little bit less than the year before. So yeah, also not bad at all. I mean, really, really good. It's funny how the market then interprets it differently. I also saw that after market, the price of Tesla went up again already 1%. So that might have a positive impact also a little bit on the S&P this afternoon. Next week, quarterly figures. The biggest news that we were all waiting for on the Fed is out now, so I think the market will remain volatile. but I think the company on itself will have maybe a bigger impact than macro stuff. Let's hope in Ukraine and Russia they remain their foot on the ground and they don't do anything strange, because that is always some sort of ticking time bomb under the market. It might escalate and then you might see some effects of that, but let's hope that doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thumb up if you like it, and hope to see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.